Welcome to the latest Soccer Down Here, Women's Soccer Weekly podcast. Kind of a special edition this week. We're getting a chance to talk to Blakely Mattern and India Trotter, two women who have started 11-11 training in Greenville, South Carolina. And this was actually a requested edition, so I'm excited to get into this one. Blakely, India, thanks for the time today. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here.
I want to start with you guys, maybe from the very beginning, and let's start with you, India. Like, how did you get involved in soccer as a kid, and what was your youth, career like before you went to Florida State?
So, I started soccer actually relatively late. Most people, I think, kind of start soccer when they're like around, 6 years old. But I started when I was 10. And my older cousin, he used to play, so we used to copy him and everything that he did. And so when he wanted to play basketball, we played basketball. When he wanted to do this, we did that. So soccer was like his big thing, and we said, okay, we're all going to do it too. So then I started playing soccer with all boys at U10 level, and I used to play rec, and then after that I kind of liked it and was semi-talented at it, so I decided to, join an all-girls team. And from there, I played on a lot of club teams, a team called Team Boca in South Florida. And I played under a guy named Steve Nugent and had a technical trainer named Tony Stevens, who was the technical trainer at Manchester United, who happened to luckily move from England to Boca. So I was pretty lucky with that, that he was able to do that. But yeah, I did that, and I ended up playing on some of the youth national teams, and then from there went to Florida State.
Blakely, what about you? So how did you find the game, and what was it like for you coming up?
I'm a little different than India. I started playing probably when I was 3-4 years old at the local YMCA. I think my dad was my coach for a couple of years, and then kind of just filtered from there into club soccer in the Greenville area where I'm from, actually. And stayed with that. I mean, our club, we had two clubs at the time when I was really young, around the 10-year-old age range, and then they formed one bigger club later on in my high school years. So I was pretty fortunate as far as travel. The club was right down the street, about 5 minutes from my house. So I played with boys for about 3 years when I was age around 12, and then with girls up through high school, and then ended up at South Carolina from there.
So let's talk about South Carolina and your time with the Gamecocks. What are some of your favorite memories playing at South Carolina?
Oh, man. Well, two games come right to my mind whenever I'm asked this question, because they were pretty monumental, at least for the program. My sophomore year, our opening game was at the University of North Carolina, and we beat them 1-0, and that was one of those games that we really shouldn't have won. We were outshot by about 25-1, but we had the one goal go in, and at the time our program was kind of rising. We were kind of middle of the pack in the SEC, so that was a big win for our program. It was the first home opener that North Carolina had ever lost to, so it kind of catapulted our program up a little bit, at least to get some recognition. So that was awesome. And then my senior year, we won the SEC tournament, which was another first for our program, that my class worked for 4 years and then won that tournament game 2-1 in overtime. So actually we went to PKs. I'm sorry, what am I saying? We went to PKs, but we won that game. So those are two of my favorite memories for sure from college.
And in India, at Florida State, it was a program that I think your time there really had a big hand in putting Florida State on the map.
It did, and it's so cool to see them now. I mean, I had the opportunity to go and see Mark and the girls this last year, and you walk around and you think that you had done something kind of special, but then now there's jerseys painted all across the sea of the hallways and stuff of international games and international caps. So I'm just proud of what they've done. I mean, it's kind of funny. I'm thinking about Blakely and her story. My story as well is another UNC story. And, it's I think it's any, women's soccer, if you play college collegiate soccer, when we were in school, if you beat North Carolina, it's a really big deal. And we played them, and they had pretty much, they had Lori Klupney at the time. Lindsay Tarpley, Gail Averbush, Heather O'Reilly, Ashlyn Harris, like you can just name them. And since we had beat them in the Elite Eight to go to the Final Four, and we probably shouldn't have won that game because the shot odds were like 22-2, but we did in PKs. So I hope if Heather's listening to this right now, she's going to be upset with me. But because I always bring this game up back to her every time I see her. I'm like, remember that time we won? But yeah, it's always like a huge thing when you beat North Carolina when you're back when we were in the 2000s, that like, hey, we beat UNC.
So both of you played in the WPS, the league before the NWSL. It lasted 3 years. Both of you spent time in Atlanta, which is kind of cool. You did not cross paths in Atlanta, though, did you?
No.
Okay.
No, we did not.
That's crazy. So, India, what's your craziest WPS story?
Ooh, my craziest WPS story. I have to think about that. Oh, actually, I have a great one. So when I was playing for Atlanta Beat, so I had left. Oh yeah, this is my time at Atlanta Beat. I was playing for James Galanis, Carly Lloyd's trainer, and he was our head coach. And we had an assistant coach named Russ, and he was like really into running. And so one time at training, and like I don't want to scare any little girls who are interested in playing professionally. This is just part of the package, and this is what you do. We ran 11 miles that day in practice. And I remember kind of like, you know, someone had a Fitbit. I think it was Kat Whitehill had a Fitbit, and she was looking at it, and she was like, why have I burned, like, you know, more than 1,000 calories? And I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on. And she saw me, and my face was turning white. And I had to go to the hospital to get some IVs because of dehydration. Not James's fault. No one's fault. I probably should have hydrated more, but we had ran 11 miles in that one practice. I'll never forget that. Oh. And we laugh about it to this day, but I mean, that's a lot. It's a lot. 11 miles is a lot.
Yeah. Blakely, did you have any stories like that from your WPS days?
No, I'm glad. I played in Atlanta actually the year before India, so somehow I missed out on the 11-mile situation. I'm thankful for that. But no, I can't remember anything like crazy specific. I do just remember when I was there, I didn't have as long a stint in Atlanta with the team. I left at about middle of the season. But before that, I think my experience was just eye-opening because I think we had a team in St. Louis that folded, and our team picked up a number of really good players like Lori Klumpney, Hope Solo, Tina Ellison, and they came and just, I mean, the speed of play and being able to play around those girls. I remember seeing Hope for the first time, and I was like, oh, my gosh, she's super strong. Like, these girls are so quick. So I think for me it was just more of an eye-opening experience, like playing at a level like that. So, I mean, in itself, that was crazy.
Let me continue with you, Blakely. How important is it, you know, and I want to get into 11-11 and what you guys do there specifically along these lines, but how important is the professional women's game to kids coming up and kids before they get to college, before they think about, I could make a living at this? How important is the professional game to, you know, having those role models and those idols for little girls?
I mean, I personally think it's a huge deal just to be able to know that opportunities are out there and like things are possible for girls, but you have to be able to see it and connect to it to some degree to like make that real for a kid. So I think what's awesome about what we do is just that we can be that voice and that vision for these kids, even if we're not playing anymore, being able to speak to them about the experiences that we had, be able to share those things with them. So they have a voice, they have kind of a picture of what to expect, and they're being prepared for that and having their eyes open to that at a much younger age. And that's something I know I didn't have growing up. So like having a female, someone that's been there, done that, I think it speaks volumes to the kids, and I think it's super important for them to be able to have that.
Yeah, India, how important do you think the NWSL growing from where they are now at 9 teams, how important is it to grow and reach more girls for the overall health of the women's game in the U.S.?
I think it's so huge. I was just thinking back to in '99 when the women's national team kind of sold out the Rose Bowl, and one of the things that they did is they really got into the clubs, the local clubs. They really did a good job of kind of doing grassroots marketing, and I think the NWSL, now being in each city, you have even more of an opportunity to really get into the community of these clubs for these girls, because the reality is they have nowhere else to look but them. And I mean, we have a girl named a girl that we played with, and we now currently train whenever she's in her off season, named Kaylee Kurtz, who plays for the Courage. And when she gets to train with some of our girls, it's really cool to see their reaction and how they're going, oh man, I wish I could do that. Or man, she's so good. Or, what do I need to do to get what it takes to do that? So I think it's just extremely important that the NWSL keeps growing and keeps getting into more cities, because the more cities, the more reach it can bring. And that's where you get big reach to, our U.S. national team and just women's sports in general, I think.
What are your thoughts about the upcoming World Cup? This is something that we've been talking to with everybody about how what are the expectations for the U.S. in this tournament? And it seems like a pretty wide range. People aren't quite sure what to make of this edition of the World Cup. How are you feeling about the U.S. going into it, India?
I mean, I have a U.S. mentality, which is domination. I think it's just you're born and raised kind of like that, we're going to win. And so I hope they do. And I still have friends in the team, so I'm definitely 100% hoping that they take home the cup. And I'm looking more of a realistic, so now that's the kind of idealist in me. But if I'm looking more just from soccer standpoint, yeah, a lot of other teams are playing soccer. They're playing good soccer. And I think some of the games I've seen in the past 6 months have definitely been there's more creativity, I think, from us. We're just bringing out more than just, hit it forward. I think we're combining better. I think we've got some new talent. We got some young kids who are bringing some different elements to the game that we haven't seen before. So I'm hoping that, that plus our veterans, you got your Tobin Heath and Megan Rapinoe's, I hope that we can, create something and have enough stamina in us to go we're going to win this and we're going to defend the cup.
Blakely, what are your expectations this summer?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much thinking in agreement with India, just as far as when I think about our team, I'm we're going to win. That's just, I feel like we should. I feel like I've watched a couple games within the last couple of months. And I mean, similar to India, I watched and I was like, oh man, that was kind of nice. This is nice. The actual play and possession style that they're doing and the speed they have and kind of how they created their goals was really nice. So again, I'm not up to date on every country and where they're at, but I just think if we play our game, that we do have the talent to win. So I'm looking forward to watching it. I haven't watched a ton of games, to be honest, other than those couple. So I'll definitely be tuning in. I think we should definitely win.
So, Blakely, let me bring it back to you. After your professional career and you started kind of figuring out what was next, how did 11-11 come about? How did the partnership with you and India come about?
So when I was playing in the Netherlands and I ended up tearing my knee, my ACL, and I came back to the States. And through the next 6 months or so, ended up back in Greenville. And a mutual friend of ours was the head coach at USC Upstate. It's a smaller D1 college right outside of Greenville, up in the Spartanburg area. And our mutual friend was the head coach at the time, and India was her assistant. And it's kind of funny because I knew Abby, the head coach, and had reached out to her, and she's has an amazing heart and kind of welcomed me right in. I didn't end up going up to the school right away, but she was always like, you should meet India. You guys would be great friends. I think y'all should connect. And it took a little bit of time, but I ended up going up there, and then that's how we initially met. I volunteered with them for a little bit, and then India and I it's a really actually kind of a funny story. I was still wanting to play soccer at the time. I was coming back from that knee injury, and there was going to be a W League team in Greenville called the Cobras. And I wanted to play, and I was trying to convince India to come back and play. And she was in full-fledged retirement mode. As she would say, she was eating Wendy's every day, not really in the soccer playing mindset. so to speak. And I was just persistent. I'm like, you can do this. Come on. Obviously, selfishly wanting her to play. And through my persistence, I guess, and her final, like, getting out there on the field after she said initially, I'll be out there for 20 minutes. It ended up being a whole game, and she joined the team. And then our experience with that team was pretty cool because we found ourselves around both, younger youth female soccer players, and then we had the younger ones with the ball girls. We had parents coming up to us and asking us questions about soccer and training and just different experiences that we had. And I think from there, the ball started rolling, and then India actually came up with the idea for the 11-11 and the infused training. I'll let her talk about that.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So, like Blakely said, people kept asking us to train their kids, and at the time I didn't really want to do it the way I think the traditional, like, you take a bag of balls out and you go out to the field and kick some balls. And I, like I said, my youth, I had been so lucky and privy to Tony Stevens, who really, showed me a really good technical base. And so a lot of my thoughts about technical training really came from him. And so I was like, but Blakely, she did a lot of strength and conditioning on the side. That was her extra kind of supplemental training to her club team. So I was like, well, what if we marry both? What if we marry technical skill work and speed, strength, and agility and put them all together for an hour-and-a-half session? So where our kids get both those elements that they need supplemental to their club team or their high school team, whatever respective team they're playing on. And so as we started to kind of think about that, and plus the demand for people asking us to train their kids, we were like, we should create something. There's a market for this. There's demand for this. And I think we can really help benefit these kids, because if we would have had all of that, like I just had technical, she just had strength and conditioning. What if we had both growing up? How much more would our careers have flourished? I don't know, but we're doing that now, hoping that we're giving the kids the things that we didn't have. And that's kind of how the infused training method in 11-11 started.
Where'd the name come from?
So 11 is just a significant number biblically in itself. It stands for transition. So India had seen it multiple times. It kind of kept coming up. And then when we thought about it more, it was like, that's exactly what our mission is with 11-11. Like, we want to help girls transition from where they are to where they want to be. And that could be in soccer, like wherever they are, whatever team they're on, what team are they trying to get to, or where are they going next? And then even as people, then, where they're at to where they want to be. So that whole transition process, where we got that number from, and then it does play on soccer, obviously, 11 versus 11. That's how many people on a team. So that's where it came from.
Very cool. India, how is it working with, because you guys are in a unique spot. You're not a club, you supplement the clubs. How has it been working with the different clubs in the area?
Well, when we first started off, and we are going to stick with this till end of time, I think, just because of the amount of kids that we want to bring in, we're non-club affiliated. So we don't work with one specific club. We try to stay out of all the politics of a bunch of clubs. We just like to service kids, and we want to make sure that they're technically where they're supposed to be. And then once they go out to their club team, that if their coach asks them to play a 4-4-2 or 3-4-3, they can hit that ball from A to B. And there's no issue. If their coach asks them to change positions, they can do that because they have a good, strong technical speed, strength, and agility and technical skill base. So for us, it's been tricky. I think some people thought at first we were going to maybe start a club, and I would never want to do that. Blakely has we have no plans to do that whatsoever, just because that's just not our heart, and we're not really interested in X's and O's. So I think we had to kind of, I guess, gain the trust of people around us in the Greenville area that we weren't going to try to start something and take away kids. That was never our intent. It was just literally to supplement each club. And I think since then, the past 3 years, we've really built some really good relationships with a lot of clubs and a lot of the people in the community. And I think they're seeing that hey, we're staying true to our word and what we want to do.
Blakely, how many girls are y'all working with right now?
So on a contracted basis, basically, which are kids that have committed to the season, which would be a spring or fall. We're in our spring season now, January through May. We have 75 girls on contract. But in addition to that, we have, because we only do our training in groups of 6, we cap our every session, we keep it small intimate. The girls are able to get the reps they need and the attention they need from us. We have a wait list of players. So we have about almost 85 girls on the wait list, which is a lot. And those are kids that come whenever any of our contracted players can't make it for whatever reason. That could be sickness, injury, a tournament, an ID camp, something like that. So in our whole system, including our college program we do in the summer, we have about 300 kids.
India, yeah, tell me about the college program and kind of how that has come about and what's next for it.
That's like one of my favorite services. I love our kids. I love all of our kids. So the college program has a little special place in my heart because they only come for 2 months. I don't know. But to see the growth in them, because they come to us every day, where our other kids, they come once a week. In June and July, our college kids come every single day, Monday through Friday. And we get them ready for preseason. So we take all their fitness packets and we make correspondence with their coaches. And we make sure that they're touching a ball. And that we make sure that they're ready to pass their fitness test when they arrive in preseason in August. But yeah, they're a great group of girls. They have a lot of personalities. But what's nice about them is, like, you don't have to motivate them as much because they know that they're on scholarship or they're going to school for a reason. And so, like, they get after it. So whereas our other little ones and our other age group, we have to tell them, like, we almost have to convince them, hey, like, this is what you're getting yourself into. These girls are already there. So they kind of know what the expectations are. So they come to work and they come with just, like, awesome attitudes. And just to kind of see the bond, because they're different colleges, right, that all come, but they all kind of bond in that one time span because it's like we all have to get through this and do the grind, and it's going to pay off in August. And I think a lot of them kind of keep in touch during the fall too, even though they play at different colleges, just to kind of check up on each other and see, like, hey, like, how you guys doing? Like, hey, how have you been? Hey, do you need help with this? And X, Y, and Z.
What's on the technical side, India? What's maybe the one thing that, as parents listen to this and wonder how their kids can be better players, what's the one thing you see that kids need to work on the most when they come to you?
I would say the technical side, but I would say 75% the technical side and 25% the speed, strength, and agility.
Okay.
And I don't think parents understand how much the technical side, and that includes first touch, receiving, finishing, heading, service, and dribbling. I don't think they understand that those 5 pillars, that working on those continuously, like how much of a difference it can separate your kid from age like 13 to 16. Because the repetition, the amount of times a kid is comfortable with the ball and touches the ball, it's going to be so much. It just makes a complete difference in their confidence, and it makes a complete difference with their ability to want the ball on the field and to be able to do what their coach is asking them to do. And if I could tell any parent, the biggest thing that they need to do is just have their kid be touching the ball. And I mean, there's tons of YouTube videos out there. There's tons of like resources for parents all over the U.S. to kind of see, like, for their kid to mimic, certain skill sets and moves. Like, just as long as they're on a ball, I think that's the most important, because that technical, like, foundation, man, if you have that, and when you turn 13, 14, you're gonna start seeing people kind of get separated. And I've seen that when I was growing up, and I see it now. It's just the biggest pillar, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree on that. And I've also seen the next step, and Blakely, I want to get your take on this. You see the super skilled technical players at clubs a lot of times with kids, and if they don't have that speed, agility, the physical fitness side of it, they get left behind too. So what do you look at as advice for parents on that side of it that they can do to help their kids be better players?
Yeah, it's really funny you asked me that question, because I feel like I just have kind of a personal testimony with this and a heart for it, because, I was one of those players that, like, I was never going to be the biggest, fastest, strongest, certainly not the fastest. I always compare, like, I tell kids, like, if you look at India versus myself, like, she's going to beat me 10 out of 10 times in a race. Every time. If we're doing a sprint, she's going to beat me. But I can last for 90 minutes. And that at steady pace, game after game, I'm more of a marathon runner than a sprinter. And that's something that's just never going to change. But when I was growing up, I had a lot of coaches, a lot of voices and authority over my head at different levels of teams say, oh, if you just got faster, you really work on your speed. Well, I did, and I didn't get much faster, to be honest, because I think what parents fail to realize is that some kids just have caps athletically, and whatever that category is for you, take it for what it is. They have a cap, and they don't like to hear that, but the truth is the truth. If I had had a coach or someone tell me, Blakely, okay, we're going to work on your speed, but the reality is you're going to be a very technical player who can anticipate the game, distribute the ball well, and like some of the skills that India's actually had to teach me that I didn't learn at a young age, technically, if I had had that, then I could have poured more into who I was going to be as a player instead of who I'm not going to be. So I think that's what we deal with a lot with parents and kids is comparison, and then trying to be something that they're just never going to be able to be. And what can we do to work on those weaknesses and not neglect them, but also say, hey, this is the player you're going to be. This is what your strengths are. We're going to really hone in and accentuate those.
Yeah, let me continue with that. How do you help identify that? You know, it's one thing. I think you're completely dead on. Like, you don't ignore the weaknesses and just say, well, you're never going to have that. There's always some room for improvement, a little bit at least. But how do you identify, kind of when you see a player come into the program, who they're going to be and kind of create that plan for them?
Well, it's kind of like I think a lot of this comes from like when I coached at USC Upstate in college, and I had to work on recruiting. And so you literally have to, and it's a skill. So as you recruit a player, you're looking at a 16-year-old, but you're kind of recruiting her from when she's going to be 18.
Right.
So you're trying to kind of see what the kids' like nuances are, what their tendencies are. Some things you can see. You can see if a kid's fast. You can see the way a kid moves, how they functionally move. You can be like, okay, they're athletic. Hey, they can get to the ball 10 times quicker than this kid. And then you see some kids who can just have a natural knack for maybe pointing their toe down or getting the skill set quicker than others. So you kind of start to look at like what are their strengths and what do they do more of, and then you start to go, okay, this kid is probably going to be like this. Their upside and potential is here, but let's really hone on this strength and let's keep affirming that to them so that they know, hey, like no matter what happens, you're going to be good at this. And they always have a fallback of this is who I am, and I can always go back to this. And like Blakely said, like when I was in the national team, it's funny. It's like when I got there because I could beat people on the dribble. But when I got there, I saw Abby Wambach and I saw all these other players, and I was like, well, maybe I should be like them because they're getting playing time and everyone likes them. But I wish I had someone say, like, no, India, the reason why we brought you in is because of X. So I think a lot of times you get on these teams or, you know, you hear from a parent or a coach might show another kid attention. You start to think like, oh, man, I need to be like that, or I need to do what she's doing. It's like, no, you need to be really good at what you're at and then work on your weaknesses.
Blakely, what's next for you with 1111 and growing it? You know, what are the next things out on the horizon for the organization?
That's a great question. Well, I'm sure Indy will get into this as well. We're moving to a new space. That's the biggest and next leap as far as 1111 training is concerned. We've been at our current location for going on 3.5 years, and we are just kind of busting at the seams. No other way to say it. And with the amount of players that we have trying to get in on our wait list, our goal now when we move into this new space, which will be about twice the size of our current training space, we'll be able to run double sessions and get some more of our kids in and give them an opportunity to train, as well as kind of expand our programming and our curriculums as far as some of the technical things that we can do with the kids, because just more space allows that. So we're excited about that. We've signed a lease. We've started to draw up papers as far as architecturally what it's going to look like, and hopefully we'll start making moves on that in the next week and look to be in there by summer. So that's kind of at the forefront. As far as for me, I'm really excited. The Greenville Triumph, who you obviously know and spoke to Chris Lewis and Joe Irwin, they're a new pro team in town, so we have a great relationship with them. We're looking to do potentially 11-11 day at one of their games and kind of get more into the community. That's my heart. I love Greenville. I grew up in Greenville. We've been fortunate to build some good relationships with other businesses and programs, organizations in the community. And so would love to expand on those and get 11-11 more out there as far as community events and stuff like that. So between those things, that's definitely what I guess personally I'm looking forward to, and then where 11-11 is going in the next 4 to 5 months.
in India, what are you looking at adding to like the curriculum, as Blakely mentioned, expanding it and doing more? What are some of the things that you're hoping to add?
I am so excited, Jason. So this new space is just gonna. We have so much there's so much creative juices kind of going on and flowing because of the new space. So we're able to do so many different things, longer things, more long balls, things of that nature. And I'm going to start really honing in on that stuff come this summer, or more so May. I'm going to sit down with our other employee, Erica Schrader, and kind of talk about, how we want to kind of start programming. What do we want to add? What do we want to focus on? So I have a bunch of things going on in my head, but I couldn't tell you exactly right now what it is. It's kind of like a bunch of things on a bunch of pieces of paper, put it that way. But it's exciting because, we have the space now, we have the opportunity and the number of kids to really just be creative and let all that stuff out.
The story of what you two have done is just really awesome because I don't know of many things to even compare it to be honest. I haven't really heard of anything like this in Atlanta where I'm based, or just haven't heard much conversation around it. I think you two really tapped into, a need, and we know, the potential for, girls to get scholarships and how important that is. But I think what you guys have done based off your experiences is look at it in a more holistic fashion. It's not just getting a scholarship for a player, but you're improving them as a player, and you're building those connections. I mean, the thing you said about the girls still sticking together and staying in touch afterwards and creating that support system for one another, very cool to see outside of the normal club scene. So, complete kudos to you guys for everything you're doing. I want to ask each of you one final question. We talk about the women's game in the U.S. a lot, and we talk about things that are good and things that are bad and things that need to change. If you became the grand exalted poobah of women's soccer in the United States, Blakely, what would be the first thing you would change?
Oh, gosh. Well, honestly, one of the first things that comes to my mind, and this is not something, I will preface this, that I know about across the country. I don't. I know there's probably clubs that do this and do this better than what I've personally seen and experienced. But I think the game starts at a really young age, technically, with kids. I think grooming kids up through academies and technically at a really young age, that's something I wasn't privy to. I don't see it a ton around where we are, or different areas of kids, other kids that I've heard about across the country, as far as academies. Are the kids learning the technical right skills at a really young age to then build off of when they get into that, middle school, high school range, instead of just learning them at that age? When I was playing overseas in Europe, I thought that was one thing that really, in the club scene over there, that led all the way up to professional, was something they did well. They had kids in there at a really young age, and they had curriculums. They had set things that they were learning year in and year out, even down to the session as far as skills. And that's just one thing I think that I would implement. I don't even know how that's possible. That's honestly just the first thing that came to my mind. But I think it's so important.
Yeah.
In the game.
Oh, totally.
Grooming kids up at a really young age, but the right way. And can we do that uniformly?
Yeah, I think when you say that, I think of Tom Byer and all the work that he's done in Japan, and had such a huge impact on the Japanese women's national team, and teaching technical skills from a very young age. I think he always says soccer starts at home, and then building it from there. That's something I've always looked to too. India, what about you? What would be your first change if you were in charge of everything related to women's soccer in the United States?
It's the controversial topic. I'd pay them more.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think there needs to be more money pumped into the U.S. women's team, and I think there needs to be more money pumped into NWSL. And the reason why I say that's because I have a lot of friends, and I've obviously played in both teams, and both played in the league and played in the national team. And I just think that when you have the opportunity to get paid, you're asking girls to actually really put on the line, hey, I want to become a professional athlete. I have some players and some friends who are players, and they are like, oh, am I going to do this? Well, I can't do this, or I can't eat. And it's even some of the D3 leagues of basketball and other sports, like they get paid well to eat, and they can eat. And I feel like, there's some contracts in NWSL. It's kind of like, for me, it's like it's a little dicey. It's like you're asking this kid to play professional soccer, and she'll do it because, it's a dream of hers. But I think it really has to come down to like, hey, pay her appropriately, and don't let her have to decide. Don't need to get a job at Taco Bell as well.
Yeah, no.
And that's kind of how I feel.
Completely with you. We did a full podcast about it, and I mean the stuff at the national team level is so baffling when you compare the two teams, the men's and the women's, and like basic differences. It just makes no sense to me. And I'm with you on the NWSL as well. It's something that we hit on a lot right now with just the fact that you're in a World Cup year, and it's such an opportunity, and you hope that this is a spark plug for this league to grow. But you're waiting for it. It's like, where's it coming from? When is it? Right.
And so, like, I mean, I don't know how, and granted, I don't know how it works, how who gets paid what, and where the funding comes from. But I feel like that's something that's been echoing a lot, and I feel like someone kind of needs to start putting a stamp on it.
Yeah, completely with you. So I guess the next question is, when are y'all starting a women's team in Greenville? When are we getting at least a W League team or a WPSL team in Greenville? Come on.
I mean, that'd be pretty awesome, actually. We'll see what the Triumph does. We'll put a little Birdie and Chris, Chris and
there you go.
Chris is here. I guess if that does pretty well, I wouldn't imagine them kind of start maybe to think of having one here. It'd be amazing. I think we have the infrastructure for it, especially because the Triumph is growing. I mean, is building a facility. But I think we kind of, Greenville's a funny city. Like we're awesome. Like if a new restaurant opens, we'll go. Like without questions asked, we'll do it. A new team comes up, we'll go. But I think it's like we have to be able to sustain it, right? I'm not going to just go once. I want to be able to go and actually become a fan. So I think, just see how the Greenville Triumph does. Let's see the fan base. Let's get the city behind that team and get them excited. And then I think there's enough female base to kind of maybe start something, and hopefully that can happen.
Yeah, we're the same thing in Atlanta. We're hoping that Atlanta United continues to grow, and we see NWSL come in as either, attached to it or affiliated with it or something related to it, because, I mean, they're just... Go ahead.
It's amazing. What they do in Atlanta United is amazing. It's amazing. I have cousins who live in Atlanta, and they don't even one doesn't even like soccer, and she's like, oh, it's just a fun time. I mean, you've created a place where it's just even more of a fun time, and they don't even like soccer. Seeing those games on TV, it's just it's amazing what they've created there. It really is.
It's been a blast to watch it. And Blakely, I mean, this is something that I think you look around the South, and right now the only, two teams in, the southern part of the United States in the NWSL, we have Orlando and we have North Carolina Courage. It feels like there is an area for something in the NWSL and for the women's game to grow at the professional level again in Atlanta, Greenville, somewhere in this ballpark. We really need to see it.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I think the base, especially in Atlanta, you guys are there, and I was thinking about that. I think when an affiliation is there with a men's team, it helps a women's program as well. That was super successful overseas. I saw that in my experience as well. Our women's team, we were underneath the same organization and branding as the men, but we were able to play in their same facilities. We got the same fan base. I think when you see a good attachment of that across men's to women's teams underneath an organization, it can be very successful. I think Atlanta definitely has the fans. It has the infrastructure to do that. And I don't see any reason why that. I mean, Greenville, obviously, we don't have the same market size as you guys, but there's definitely an area for that in the Southeast that's more centralized from between the North Carolina, Florida teams. And I'd like to, even if it's in Atlanta, I think that would still be awesome.
Yeah, I think it could draw. And then, as the women's game grows, hopefully you see the equivalent of the Triumphs to, an Atlanta United in terms of being a lower division professional team. Hopefully you can see that growth on the women's side too, because, we all know the athletes are there, the players are there, they're coming out of college, and if there's an outlet for them, there will be players to fill these teams.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We'll let everybody know, India, how people can find what y'all are doing at 11:11 and how they can keep up with all the growth that you guys have coming up this year.
Awesome. They can check us out on Instagram at 1111 Training, all spelled out, or they can go online. Our website's 1111training.com. And yeah, Instagram is pretty much where we keep up all our updates, all our videos, what's going on behind the scenes, and just kind of our plans for the future. So yeah, we'd love for you to follow us and to check us out.
Awesome. India, Blakely, thanks so much for your time today on another Women's Soccer Weekly podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jason. It's been amazing.
Absolutely, Jason. We really appreciate allowing us to be on here.